Science of reading has resulted in the 5 pillars of literacy: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. How we provide instruction is key to reading success, along with what to do when the kids don't know. Do we make listening and speaking a high priority? Students cannot understand by reading what they do not understand by listening. All 5 of these pillars need to be part of reading instruction at all grade levels. You'll see the arrow pointing to Tier 1 all. We have to remember, even in the upper grades, there is space and time for phonemic awareness and phonics. While you move up in the grade levels, the amount of time you spend on each pillar does change, but always remembering that playing with the sounds of words, we call that phonemic awareness, has a very valuable part in our classrooms from kinder all the way up. The direct instruction around each pillar and how much time spent changes over time, like I said, which we will address in this training. However, all 5 pillars are part of the K through 12 universal Tier 1 instruction. I want us also thinking about our universal screener, FastBridge. Think about the interventions in the reading side where your students are placed. Your students might be placed at a 0.2 phonemic awareness and phonics. Maybe they're in the area of phonics and fluency, like a 1.2. You'll also have students who are on the vocabulary and comprehension side. Each pillar can tell us exactly what students need to build up strength in each one of these, because to be a good, skilled reader, you need strength in each pillar. So you might be saying, I keep fine-tuning my Tier 1 teaching, but I still have students who are struggling. What am I missing? Or maybe you feel like you'll always have students who struggle and there's just no way around it. Your answer is small groups. Not small groups of just pulling students to the back table and giving them a book and just maybe reading a novel together. No, that's not the small groups we're going to be talking about today. We are talking about small groups that are driven by data. And you'll see here on our computer screen that we have the FastBridge Screening to Intervention Report. Here is where you have a whole group recommendation, which is where a lot of your Tier 1 instruction can live. And then you're also going to identify specific areas that students are struggling in, and you're going to make small groups around that. Now let's talk real quick about a metaphor here. We're going to look at something called the Swiss cheese effect. So this is the why behind small groups. If we don't address reading skills based on the data, we are left with the Swiss cheese effect. I love this metaphor. For most of today's training, we're going to focus on small groups, where our purpose is to raise our students' reading levels by filling the gaps. I love to use this to explain to parents that your child has some Swiss cheese holes in the area of phonemic awareness. Maybe it's a 5th grader who's struggling with reading comprehension. They're not comprehending at grade level. And so we could just say, oh, they are struggling with comprehension. But after my screener and a deeper diagnostic, I have found that actually the student is really struggling in phonemic awareness and cannot hear blends in words, which then affects their phonics, their reading, their writing, their decoding, their encoding. And really, that is what's affecting their reading comprehension, because when I just read to them out loud or they're listening to a podcast, they seem to get everything. So the Swiss cheese effect metaphor is a great way for us to determine how we're going to fill the holes in their gaps of learning. We're also going to quickly assess where the holes are in their learning and explicitly and systematically fill them. To do this, you must have good data. And you also have to remember that filling these holes might take time. It's not going to be a immediate change overnight, especially if the students are in the older grades and there's bigger Swiss cheese holes to fill. But in order to start taking action and filling these students' literacy skills up, then we have to quickly assess and make decisions through data. How do we start integrating small groups into Tier 1 instruction? How do I have the time? When do I do this? Well, many of you already do Tier 1 interventions just by working with students one-on-one or in pairs, maybe helping them finish an assignment. But Tier 1 is first best instruction. Some students need more time and repetition, so small groups is needed. In this situation, it is a small group based on grade level standards. Tier 1 intervention starts here. Tier 2 is instruction to some who may need additional work with grade level standards, or it may be a group that's focused on an intervention to raise a student's reading level and fill in the gaps based on data. Tier 3 is after a student has received intervention at Tier 1 and Tier 2 and is now in the need of specialized instruction, specific to one. Tier 3 is our smallest group in our schools. The smallest percentage of students are there at individual services because that Tier 2 should be catching the students and giving them targeted and skill-based intervention on top of the Tier 1 intervention that they are getting by their classroom teacher.